zone. He gets the try.
The Red 78.
We're both Munster people.
Carberry gets over the line. Try from Munster.
Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
Hello and welcome along. I'm Alan Quinlan and you're listening to episode 49 of the Red 78 here on the Rugby channel. And with me as always is Niamh Briggs. How are you, Niamh?
I'm not too bad. Still trying to warm up from Sunday. Great atmosphere.
Had you any match the weekend or training with the women's teams?
No, we were off this weekend. So
with all the women's teams, I should say, that you're coaching.
Yeah, no, it was a rare weekend off, so it was good.
Very good. As ever, we want you to be involved. You can always tweet us at Rugby Channel 15 or at our own personal Twitter pages. You can leave a comment on YouTube or email us at the Rugby Channel at barmedia.ie. Right, we've had plenty of thoughts. I put a tweet out yesterday. Similar team, a lot of glass half full people rather than being overcritical of the team. 18-13, losing bonus point to Munster against the 5-time European champions. So what's the reaction been like?
Yeah, look, to be fair, I think people are right to be glass half full. I actually thought there was so many good moments in that game, and I just think in relation to where both sides are, Toulouse top 14, obviously steeped in history, incredible players, and Munster are just starting to rebuild themselves. Jerry Callahan on YouTube, it's great to show improvement, but still think we're not doing enough to develop an option at 12 or 3. I can tell you now how Scannels and any of our tight heads will go against top tier. Someone should be on the phone to Ulster to try and get Sutherland or Tumaga for next season.
Yeah, well, Rory Sutherland, I saw that one as a loose head.
Yeah.
So he's talking about getting a tight head.
They don't grow on trees.
Yeah, John Ryan played well, and that's been a big debate about obviously letting him go and then bringing him back. And
rumours he's going now again.
Yeah,
on paper yesterday,
but
it'd be a disaster. Liam Sheehan, a credible performance against one of the best club sides in the world. Our ability to defend our maul and execute our maul cost us the game. Ref didn't seem interested in refereeing the offside and breakdown. Martin Brommel, to only score 3 points in the second half isn't good enough. Had an opportunity at 10-15 to take 3, didn't, and went to the corner and failed to score. Shortly after, a front row incline came off, gave up experience and size there. Toulouse players played the conditions better than us, not all bad.
Yeah, when he says there, just on that one, I'm not good enough. It's very, very difficult against a side that have so much depth, so much power. So I think it's a harsh, kind of observation to say it's not good enough.
But you just said only scoring 3 points second half, which
I suppose there
was.
Was.
Talking about the whole game.
And I think, of course, a lot of people are saying, we should have taken a penalty.
Hindsight's great. No, I'm telling you now, I have to say, they had momentum. They, you know what I mean? I would have went for a corner on many of those as well because they had momentum. You could almost feel that they were on top of Toulouse, and okay, they didn't execute, but hindsight's great. I think they were right to go for the juggler there, and they know they need to score tries anyway. Joe was worried about our scrum and own lineup before the game, but both were solid enough. We didn't get enough points on the board during a good first half. Inaccuracies in the second punished by a quality outfit. Lack of size in the back five with Snyman, Egdogbo, Ahern out was costly.
Fair comment.
Yeah. Mivu again was always going to be a case of more hope than expectation against a serious outfit like Toulouse. At least we stood up to them, unlike the Ulster performance, who are arguably a better side on paper than Munster at the moment. Tom Lurgan, this one came too early for an improving Munster against one of the top teams in Europe. They were always going to have too much for us. Our handling errors were frustrating and they got some big turnovers at key moments. But we still had them worried on 80 minutes, bring on the Saints. That's kind of probably a good tweet to sum it up in terms of the improving side, like about where they are in both teams and their cycles. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah.
Munster are a little bit behind them. Benjamin Cody, we have a lot to be upbeat about. We are definitely improving and are only going to get better and better. We lost to Toulouse by 1 score after 4 months of the coaches being involved. We need time, consistent support of the players, coaches, and good signings. And then Ian Flynn, sloppy individual mistakes cost Munster. Ref was trigger happy with his whistle too. Never threatened the Toulouse try line in the second half. But credit to Toulouse, they are a quality side. Huge doubleheader against Northampton now. Just a couple more. Ian Moore, disappointing result, but good performance overall given the strength of the opposition. Maul and lineup misfired at critical times. Failed to put away a couple of opportunities that could have changed the result. Needed that yellow to come earlier to get full advantage.
Just on that, the line-out misfiring, they only lost one line-out.
Yeah, I agree. I think
that was a crooked throw from Dermot Barron when he came on, when they had a line out on the far side of the halfway line. So I thought the line out was quite good. I think the maul is always going to be difficult. A few people have mentioned that.
Is that because of size, Quinny? The actual size, or is it technique?
Well, what do you think? You have a second row, Emmanuel Mafu, who's 145 kilos, Richie Arnold, who's 130 kilos. You have so much power, size, physicality.
I know, but I'm asking you, is there a way that you can, is there any way you can manipulate that to make your strengths become more powerful in that unit? It's
difficult because sometimes that size, it's hard to it's one of their strengths when they have that weight and size. That's if you start mauling against a team like that, it's just more difficult to go forward. You can have really good technique, but I think what Toulouse did, not just their physicality and their size, but they broke up those Munster mauls in that second half. Those 2 great opportunities. Were they legal in everything they were doing? No, they weren't. And Munster were penalised twice at maul time by the referee. So there wasn't any consistency there. I thought that ball just after half time when Munster had an opportunity down near the 5 metre line, that on 2 occasions there they got turned over twice there, and that was very, very costly, obviously. And it's you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. If you go into the corner and you score, it's a great result. It's a great decision, and if you don't. But it's very difficult. So yes, a little to answer your question, of course it's good technique as well, getting the ball at the very back of the maul. At least then you have a bit of stability. If you're not moving forward, you can play it away better.
Yeah.
The second maul, I think Craig Casey is trying to take it out and he gets wrapped up by Placines and knocked onto the ground, and it's just a big pile up, and it's difficult. So it's a bit of technique, but it's hard to counteract that power. Maybe Munster would have been better off trying to do a peel around the back of the line out or around the front of the line out or move the point of attack. But
Per Johansson says, okay performance, but not much more. Still struggling to find gaps when running with the ball. Should give Crowley the chance to start on Sunday. Thought the scrum would be a big problem, but it held up pretty well. And then Christopher Murphy, a step back from last year, in my opinion. Toulouse were content to kick and let Munster come at them for large stretches. When they wanted to play, they could flip the switch and dominate. Holding Munster scoreless for a huge stretch of the match shows how far Munster have to go. See, I just cannot agree really with that tweet. And then I think Toulouse are incredible. I think they could very well win this tournament. But I don't think it was a step back from last year at all. I think Munster actually played. I thought they put a huge amount of faces together, especially in that first half. And we've spoken about evolution and parts of the game that need to improve all the time. So they now have their first pod off the edge and the second pod. They had that already. They have the ability of Joey going in behind to be able to go out the back. And we spoke about being in that 15 channel. How do we make the most of those line breaks or resource the ruck better? And that's something that they had this much, close, this much almost sorted. And it's now about just making sure that the next couple of phases or pods are that detail is there for them as it is for those on the inside.
I saw that tweet, and I think it's probably the point is looking back at the game against Toulouse in May and the Aviva. Munster got, was it 3 tries that day?
Yeah, but
and they look like they got more line breaks and stuff like that. But I don't think it's. I agree. I don't think it's a step backwards. I think Munster defense was really good at times. I think the try they conceded was a defensive mistake from Anton Frisch. He shoots out of the line. You got to get man and ball. LaBelle finishes in the corner. The other one then was from the maul where they broke off Marchand. He gives it to Dupont and Towsien scores in the corner. So it's not as if Toulouse cut Munster open. But
even that first try was incredible. There's not many teams in Europe that are going to be able to go edge to edge without, you know what I mean, in terms of that. Like the pass execution, the accuracy was incredible, and yet Calvin Nash almost makes a tackle on the line.
Yeah, but if Anton Frisch it doesn't come out of the line there, the Munster defend that. They go back, they have a penalty as well. So there's less pressure when you have the penalty coming. Really well executed, but it was disappointing a try to score at that point because, and we'll talk about the performance overall in a minute and we'll get more into it, but it was, yes, I don't think it was a step back. I think if anything, there's signs there that they're easier on the eye. They're trying to play a bit better, and they were the ones trying to play rugby. Toulouse kicked the leather off the ball, and they do that.
Yeah.
France do that, and it's no surprise. But they have the power and that strength and physicality when they get into the scoring areas. But very close game, and overall, I think the reality going into it. No, I thought Munster might get a result here. And they could still have easily got a result, even the mistakes they made and the pressure they were under in the second half, if they got a little bit of luck and some refereeing decisions didn't go against them. But anyway, have you any more tweets?
We'll just finish up one because the rest of them are all about really the same kind of thought process in relation to lack of size. So missing Snyman, Ahern, and Dogbo, Wycherley. But George H. Dundon says, while we started well, began to concede penalties by not protecting our ball well enough at the breakdown. The thickening fog seemed to harm us more than Toulouse. Mike Haley's counter-attack running neutralised in the second half. Still think we've enough about us to win on Sunday.
Just on the fog and the conditions, I think my opinion is if Munster are ahead there, well, then they can be the ones that are playing territory and putting the ball down the field and managing the tempo a little bit. The breakdown was an issue. A lot of people are saying, well, we didn't protect the ball. Sometimes it's just downright difficult when you're playing against such a physical, powerful side who were right on the edge of the offside line numerous occasions. Now, for anyone who's not a Munster fan listening to this, of course, you can look back and both sides, and Munster maybe got away with one or two that they could have been pinged for, but there was a lot that the pressure that was coming on Craig Casey and Paddy Patterson when he came on, I thought a few times, there's no way that the Toulouse players are at the hindmost foot, the way they're able to grab and stop the scrum half from passing it. Joey Carberry got tackled 2 or 3 times as he was passing the ball. They weren't illegal tackles, but I watched them back again. They were a half a metre up the middle of the ruck, that Toulouse defensive line. It was never called. It was never pulled. The two ARs, Greg McDonald and James Clark, a couple of times they pinged Jeremy Lockman at one side in the first half. That was an assistant referee's call. But there was no calls for offsides from the assistant referees for either side. And I just think Christoph Ridley missed a lot. And we'll talk about the referee's performance in a minute, but there was very small margins in this game. And I think that's why Munster are getting, they're not getting a free pass here, because I think there's lots of things they could have done better. But when you're playing against a side, there's 10 of these players in the 23 who won a Grand Slam with France. Munster have probably 2 starters at the moment on the Irish team. So there's a contrast there in the depth and the quality. And that is the reality before the game. I think most Munster fans knew that going into the ground. We spoke about it last week. And you're beaten by 5 points. So that's why the glass is half full for me, I think. Could Munster have been better in certain things? Absolutely. But I think, as you said, most teams, and Toulouse will will beat most teams this year when they play them home and away. They've that much quality and strength and depth. Just look what they brought off the bench in Mauvaka, Cyril Bay, Faumaina, 3 top class internationals. Flamont, who's an international as well, Jack Willis, English international. A lot of power. They went with the 6-2 split. So Toulouse's tactics were very good. They messed Munster up at that breakdown and used their physicality to that worked in their favour.
Yeah, look, hugely. I think you just hit the nail on the head in relation to their tactics. I thought they were incredibly smart about how they went about things. So they'd have Dupont, out of 3 or 4 meters behind the ruck defensively, and the minute the ball is lifted, it gives him license to shoot, and he's putting so much pressure on not only Casey but Carberry or the next first receiver, and therefore it almost looks like he's offside. There were offsides 100% in terms of French players coming back into position, and Casey's looking to pass. There was 2 or 3 times there were front rowers in Casey's line of vision coming back onto onside. Smarter hit them like that. That makes it more obvious.
Yeah, and look, I don't think. Look, at the end of the day, these are small margins, small things that you just felt that they didn't get the bounce of the ball, and like they lost by a score.
I know, but what I'm saying is that like Dupont, he for me by far, like, he's the best player in the world. Like, I know Van der Fleer has won there a couple of weeks ago, but watching him the other day, his ability to almost cheat lines, kind of Richard McCaw-esque, I thought, in terms of living on that edge. Even like his ability so he goes to chase down a kick, Munster kick back, and he just stands there, never retreats. They kick and he waits almost a second or two, and then he goes, and everybody kind of forgot that he hasn't come from
he's offside. He's offside because he makes no effort to go back.
But how it's clever, Quinny.
It is, yeah.
That you lived on the edge. It's absolute rugby smart, and I'd love somebody in our team to be like that, to be living on the edge like that, and
that's just that game awareness, and he's a wonderful player defensively and from an attacking point of view. Let's talk about the positives and negatives. So from the performance, so 1-score game against a powerhouse. Munster at home, they've lost once in. Let me see, it was one defeat for Munster in their last 20 European games before Sunday, and that was against Leicester a couple of years ago. I think it was 2017 or 18. So it's a difficult place to go and play, and Toulouse managed the game at a tempo really well, so they're a top quality side. But just on the Munster positives and negatives, let's start with the negatives. So where could Munster have been better? We take the Toulouse pressure and physicality out of it for a minute here.
Yeah.
So for Munster fans listening and for people looking for positives, we'll talk about them in a sec. But just the negatives, where could Munster have been better? I thought they started the game really well the first 20 minutes. So one of the negatives for me, and I'll let you answer then, is not getting enough scores in that first 20 minutes.
Yeah, look, 100%, because then it's a different story. You're talking about momentum. I think for me, the big thing is that missing small detail. So they have this rucking process that they call barreling. So now they don't just clear past the ball and then have a sealer on top of it. They literally just clear out the 2 defenders that are coming in on either side. And if you get it right, it's brilliant, because every ruck ball, like Leinster are exceptional at it. The ruck speed goes between 0 and 3 seconds majority of the game. So it looks if you miss it, so if you don't get a shoulder on, if you come off the wrong angle, if you end up getting arms and you're starting to body swinging as opposed to actually nailing that, they're actually in the ruck and then they create havoc.
So you're saying they missed that a few times?
They missed it a few times, 100%.
Probably more so in the second half?
Yeah. And what happens is that off their pod system off the edge, like whatever runs off the 9 and whatever's running off Joey or even like another straight off the 9 pod in terms of the 2 here, they're already set, so they're able to they nail that detail there. My issue is that as they go through phase 3, 4, 5, until they actually get to another edge, that space is where they're missing that small little detail. So like, they don't know, like Frisch goes to go and then you go in to try and rock him and all of a sudden the ball's in your hand and now Jeremy Lockman gets the ball, and then all of a sudden, Frisch is still on the floor. There's nobody coming from the inside to try and clear out, and it's a turnover ball. So it's about that ability to have the numbers across the pitch, if that makes any sense.
Okay, so better work at the breakdown, better technique, more awareness. Is that enthusiasm? Is it a mental thing? Is it fatigue? Or is it just switching off for a second?
I don't even think it's switching off. I just think that it's a case of the game is evolving in terms of how teams attack now. So when you come up from your pod, you just come straight back. They don't really go around the corner too much anymore. So if you've gone narrow off 9 and narrow off 9 again, all of a sudden you have a huge amount of space that you're looking to cover. And if somebody gets a half break, you're kind of running out of numbers a small bit. So but yeah, look, I think that's definitely one in terms of the breakdown for me. And the second one is just, I find that if we miss a tackle defensively in the front line, we concede nearly all the time because of how they defend. And I just think that we've got to be a little bit smarter, that if somebody does miss a tackle, that, you know, like Frisch or whatever, you've got backup behind it. But I actually thought there was so much good about it. Their retention of the ball was really good, especially the first half.
So breakdown and the defensive scramble, handling errors for me. There was a couple of them that maybe that's a little bit of the pressure, but I thought there was some handling errors there. Maybe it was the fog. Mike Haley knocked one on, Joey Carby knocked one on, and they kind of drained the energy of the crowd. And some of the handling errors, they're the other negatives for me. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, and you're right, but it's about putting the right people into the right space. So, you know, without being disrespectful or condescending to certain players, some players are just going to be absolute mullickers. Some players are going to be the ones that can take the ball to the line. Some players are going to be the passers. And at the moment, Munster are caught in a rock and a hard place. They want to go and play this game that they've never played in the last 5 or 6 years. And they've got players that have grown up playing in a certain way. And now all of a sudden we're asking them to go through holes and to be able to catch the ball and be able to carry. So obviously John Klein one that in the first half, he goes through a hole and he's away there. Like, because in Munster, that's actually a proper line break because there's literally nobody in front of him, but it just drops the ball, unfortunately. Jeremy Lockman's another one. And the Joey Carberry, Mike Haley ones, they're a few. I don't think that they happen that often. So you think that like they're okay. It's that forward pack, that ability to be able to exploit the space and, you know, hold on to the ball is what that little bit of detail that Munster just need to continue to be patient with.
Okay, and we acknowledge that look at it, there is a different sort of pressure on the team you're playing here, but these are things that Munster need to be better with at the top level, and a lot of the players will learn that. I think one of the big positives for me is, and maybe it's a problem as well, there was 23 Irish qualified players tugged out for Munster on Sunday. That's unbelievable.
I didn't even notice that.
All 23 could have played for Ireland or have played for Ireland, or, you know, there's a number of them in there have played for Ireland. So we have 2 players who are the marquee signings, RG Snyman and Malachi Fekitoa, sitting in the stands. And, you know, RG Snyman obviously has had a dreadful time with the injuries. Hopefully, I think the news is a little bit better that he's making progress and that he will get back playing in the new year. Malachi Fekitoa hasn't fitted into the system, isn't impressing the coaches for whatever reason. He's fit, but he's not starting. So things to be performing and be available and doing well. So there's a positive and a negative, big positive with the 23 players. But
do you know what also was a big positive for the supporters and everything? The biggest roar of the night was Keith Earls coming off the bench, getting back fit, and you get to see him for the first time in the season. I don't know if you were at the match, but genuinely it was the biggest roar, more than the scores, when Keith Earls came off the bench. And that's the affiliation.
I was at the match, and you blanked me there as you were coming into reception. But anyway, I'm used to that. Okay, the other positives for me, again, you can look at this 2 ways. Munster possession, 61%. So plenty of ball, plenty of opportunities. Toulouse didn't really want the ball. They just kicked it away. They kicked the ball 36 times in the game. Phenomenal.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Munster kicked it 22 times, which is a low number. Munster's territory, 58%, which is, again, they're playing in the right area. I know they're trying to get out meters gained, 419 meters as opposed to 213. But look, people will say, well, it's the scoreline that matters. Defenders beaten 14 as opposed to Toulouse's 10, but Toulouse didn't really try and run the ball back. No clean breaks. A lot of endeavour to try and find space, but against a very, very strong defensive side. 173 passes as opposed to 65 for Toulouse. I think the turnovers conceded are 10-6, but then Munster kind of turned the ball over 10 times. Not at the breakdown, but at certain other areas in the game. They're kind of broad, those turnover stats, but so there's plenty of positives there. And
Jeannie,
I think
it was Quinny, sorry to interrupt you there. If you held up that sheet, didn't tell anybody the score, you'd be almost saying, God, Munster absolutely won that game, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but you do. Unfortunately, stats can be
No,
strange.
that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm
sometimes
saying,
they can be strange. But so a lot of that stuff there, it's not as if Munster were completely outplayed the whole game and that they were under the pump all the time. They didn't really have long periods in the game where they had to defend in their own 22. I think, but look, credit to Toulouse. They're the same mentality as France. They get into the scoring zone and they seem to have that power, that execution, that quality. And then when you have Dupont making decision, bringing players in around him, he's just phenomenal. Defensively, he was superb. He tidied up so much the other day for Toulouse, and tackled Mike Haley a number of times when he doesn't retreat. And technically, is he brought onside or not? Who knows? But there's lots of positives there. I think the shape and the attack that they're trying to create options was there and evident again for people to see, which is really good. Let's get on to the start of the week because we got to move on. We're both in agreement, glass half full. And
first time for a while.
There's an opportunity for, to go to Northampton. They'll be reeling from their loss. We'll talk about that at the end. But the start of the week for you was who?
Well, it was Mike Haley. I thought even in very difficult conditions, I thought he was exceptional. He covered the most meters in running, which makes sense when Toulouse kicked the ball 36 times. But we're now starting to see Mike Haley in terms of in a really good, rich vein of form. His ability to make ground, his footwork in and around contact, we'll always get a soft shoulder, and more often than not, we'll always retain the ball, which is a very difficult thing to do when you're running it back that much. I'd love to see him link more. I'd love to see him come off a blind side and be that first receiver. But I thought he was really, really good. I just think he seems to be liberated by Mike Prendergast's attack philosophy. Not just him, I suppose, lots of the players, but he especially. And I thought he was really, really good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he was superb, full of energy, and I think the aimless kicking that we've probably seen on occasions before, and uncertainty from him when he gets the ball in the backfield. The back three were really good. Mike Haley, Calvin Nash, and Shane Daly. Frisch again looks a player, doesn't he? Yeah. He's physical as well. He's like he can take it into contact. Joey Carberry, a little bit of a mixed bag at times, but some people are being critical.
Good.
I thought he was good. I thought he was good. He made some mistakes. Look, there's some mistakes happened here.
When you're on the ball that much, so Quinny, those mistakes will happen more than...
John Hodnett, for me, outstanding again. I know he was replaced by Kindellan, but brilliant player. The pack overall, I think, were solid. John Ryan did really well on our scrums, and the tweeters at the start were mentioning that, and that was a big concern. The scrum was good, and players off the bench. Jack O'Donoghue looks really energetic and making an impact off the bench. I know he doesn't want to sit there. He wants to start games, but Jack Crowley coming on, that's a question I have for you. He looked really evasive and dangerous again. Is there an argument to start him against Northampton and maybe look at him as a centre option?
Yeah, so for a long time, I've always thought, like, I still think that Joey's best position is 15. I always thought that Jack Crowley's best position is actually at 12. I think you buy him that little more time and space. His footwork in and around contact is so good. And yeah, 100%. See, here's the thing, right? Rory Scannell is like a Mr. Consistent. So he'd always do a good job. And to be fair to him, he always does a good job. He's hardy. He's a very good left boot.
He's played well in the last few weeks as well.
But there's almost, Jack Crowley has that little bit of X factor, that little bit of something out of nothing, that little burst of pace that I just think that Rory Scannell is missing. And I just think that Munster have to go, they have to win, they have to try and get as many points on the board as possible in relation to trying to, because of the new format of this Champions Cup, which I don't even understand properly. And I think you got to throw caution to the wind, and I think you got to start him.
Yeah, Malachi Fekitoa maybe comes back into the mix as well. I don't know what's going on there, and lots of people don't, but I think there's still some merits in having him in around the squad and seeing what he can do, because he has a little bit of spark as well, and that power that maybe we're talking a lot about. I think Chris Farrell is a massive loss to this team.
Yeah, I agree.
I think if you had an option of him at 12 as well, and Frisch outside him, there's
you know that
Frisch,
I heard or read something there this week or last week, that Frisch, Bristol thought Frisch was actually a 12 as opposed to a 13, and you know that then could open up a position for Fekitoa, or I don't think they'll do it this weekend because they've not played him there, but you know, Chris Farrell comes back or whatever, hopefully soon, then you have you know, a Frisch and a Farrell kind of a combination. But yeah, look, I do think that Munster needs something more there.
Yeah, and some of the detail probably needs to be a little bit better for this week, but we've got to be very careful when we talk about Northampton, because you can think that it's going to be easier this week, and what you did last Sunday, you won't be under the same pressure and it'll work. There has to be a confidence and a belief that they can go there, but Northampton will be reeling as well. I just want to touch on one thing before we look at Northampton. Christoph Ridley, the referee on Sunday, he's tweeted, England were knocked out of the World Cup against France on Saturday night, and Gary Neville tweeted, "Ref is a joke." And Christoph Ridley that night sent a reply. He did a quote tweet, and this is what he said: "The ripple effect of this tweet impacts refereeing standards in the long term. Even for those who do pick up a whistle, in the end, all you're left with is the referees that are able to tolerate and survive, not the actual best referees. Unknowingly, this damages the game." I'm always a little bit hesitant. You know, you go back to the Rassie thing and the videos and stuff. Part of me really believes there has to be more accountability at the top level, and not public shaming and all that kind of stuff. And there is accountability internally with the referees, where reports are sent and they're judged on their performances. But for someone making a comment like that the night before refereeing a European Cup game is ill-advised, I think, because I could easily go through Christoph Ridley's performance on Sunday against Munster, and I'll give you some examples. Gavin Coombs on 54 minutes, perfectly legal, poaching the ball. He's pulled forward by the Toulouse player. The recommendation there is when the jackler gets onto the ball and gets his hands on it, if he's pulled forward, with lots of times players do now to try and make it look like they're gone off their feet, you still have to reward the jackler. He should have got a penalty there. Opportunity for Munster to kick it over the bar, make it 15-13, straight in front of the posts outside the 22. There was another one, 65 minutes, where Josh Ritchley carries the ball into contact. I think it's maybe Alex Candellan or someone comes in to clean it out. It shoots out the side of the ruck. Dimitri Delibes, the 13 for Toulouse, is standing halfway up the middle of the ruck, picks the ball up when it comes out at the side, passes to a couple of players. Ramos kicks the ball downfield. Munster players come back, retreat on the 22 to try and help the players and tidy things up. Ramos comes in a poach position, doesn't really go on the ball, in my opinion, and gets rewarded immediately with a penalty. Toulouse kicked the penalty, it's 18-10. It drains Munster. There's two big decisions there that were wrong, and they were as wrong could be. So what does Christoph Ridley want Munster fans to say? Well, that's grand, it's fine, no problem. we won't criticise the referee and his assistant referees and his TMO, because I think his TMO got something really wrong in the first half as well when the number 7 for Toulouse, Mike Alban Placines, hits Mike Haley in the air, and it's a yellow card for me. He gives the penalty. They have a conversation. It's the shot is not putting up on the screen, and to be fair to Christoph Ridley here, he says, "Do I need to look at something more than just a penalty?" And Rowan Kitt says, "No, you don't." Who's the referee, Niamh? The referee needs to. I know you get your recommendations and support from your TMO, but the pictures clearly show Placines takes Mike Haley out in the air. He comes down on his back. It is more than a penalty. It's a yellow card. There's talking about mitigation that he was pushed. He was pushed by touched by one of the Toulouse players. If it was a Munster player, that's major change in what you're thinking. But so there's a number of big decisions there that went wrong. There's a lot of breakdown side entries. There's a lot of offsides at the breakdown. There's side entries at those mauls that I said. So, and I know you get this, and this isn't sour grapes. This is a reality. You're always going to get some 50-50s, 60-40s in a game that you feel should have been gone to you as the home team and all that kind of stuff. But it just felt like that throughout that whole game that Munster did not get any of those 50-50 decisions, and they lose the game by a score. And I think the two big ones are the Gavin Coombs one, and when the ball shoots out the side of the ruck in the 65th minute and Delibes picks it up. That's a penalty to Munster, and the other one's a penalty to Munster. He penalised Gavin Coombs, saying he's gone off his feet. He's in a perfect position. He gets pulled forward. His hands are on the ball before he gets pulled forward. So for Christoph Ridley to be tweeting and talking about Gary Neville on Saturday night that he shouldn't be saying ref is a joke because it has a ripple effect on the refereeing standards. Well, the refereeing standards weren't good on Sunday, Christoph, and you need to go back and have a look at your match. And it's no good to Munster now. They'll send in their report and they'll get the feedback back basically saying, oh yeah, well, this is wrong, that's wrong, and we agree with you here and we agree with you there, and well, we don't agree with you on this one, whatever the case may be. But that's no good to Munster. They've lost the game. Yeah,
I think I can hear your frustration, and I agree to lots of that. For me, I think, you know, just like a player, there's never going to be a perfect game from a ref, but what you're looking for is consistency. So lots of side entries at mauls, and then just before they get their second try, Niall Scannon's penalised for coming inside entry in the maul, which is fine because he did. But then up on the opposite side, that doesn't happen. First half, Jerry Loughman gets penalised for going off his feet, sealing off a breakdown, and Toulouse kicked from that. And likewise, you know, Toulouse are in their 22 and they're completely sealing off. And you can actually see the Munster players pointing down. And it's almost a case of saying, like, well, you penalise us over here, which is fine in terms of if that's what your thing is, but you've got to be consistent across the board. And I think if there's consistency across the board, rightly or wrongly, then, you know, you kind of have it. Okay. You could take it better, but there was just no consistency.
No consistency. And here's a guy
coming off the pitch, and
Here's a guy going onto social media Saturday night, and he goes out and look, mistakes happen, but I just thought the whole tempo, the whole way that game went, he seemed to give Toulouse decisions. And look, the stats show that Toulouse gave away 10 penalties and Munster 8, but there was some crucial
times
decisions in there. Tyke Burton is over a ball in the second half, and there's a couple of bodies under him. He's saying, "Oh, you can't come over. Don't come over the middle of the ruck." Like, where's that? What's that about? Tyke Burton gets his hands on the ball, and the referees tell him leave it alone. Never rewarded him at all. So, you know, you're talking about refereeing standards. The refereeing standard on Sunday was dreadful, really dreadful. And I don't want to be knocking referees and at this, but days like that can make you go, well, yeah, you can understand the Rassie Erasmus, the first stuff in the lines, that coaches like this has massive implications for Munster Rugby as a club. They win that game, they possibly who knows what happens with the Northampton. But if you got 3 out of 4 wins, you're looking at a round 16 home game. That's a lot of financial. It's a big financial uplift for a club like Munster, and one score in the game. And so look, there's plenty of decisions there and things that could have went the other way, but I just thought they didn't get any of them on Sunday. So just quickly, we'll move on to Northampton. They were beaten 46-12 by La Rochelle, the champions, at home. So that would suggest it's going to be no bother for Munster on Sunday, Niamh. What do you think?
Gosh, no. Yeah,
46-12, sorry, 46-12.
Yeah, 46-12. They were away to La Rochelle, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, watched that game. I thought, that was just very much a case of Northampton not being able to deal with La Rochelle's physicality.
32-0 at half time.
Yeah. They lost that this weekend gone. But they also got hammered against Gloucester the week before, at 34-19, I think I read. So they're not in a very rich vein of form, and they can go two ways. They can either be, able to flip it around and be able to go for this, or they're continuously going to slide down that. And
in the Gallagher Premiership, they've played 10, won 4, lost 6.
They're not going well this
sixth
season.
in the table.
Dan Bigger being injured is huge, and obviously he's leaving now as well.
He's gone. He's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. I think. Yeah. Lewis Ludlam. They've got a couple of players that are that can, Tommy Freeman, George Fairbank. They're good. They're good and they're elusive in open play.
Laws came off the bench, and I think they'll obviously look at Munster as a big scalp and a chance to kind of
and a home game for them.
Get back on track, respond for something like this. Phil Dawson, who's coaching Sam Vesti, I played against both those guys. They're very passionate. Phil Dawson is a Northampton man through and through, and I think he spoke in the press after the game that the first half they just couldn't live with La Rochelle. They were mentally not ready for it, but their second half performance was so much better. They scored 2 tries themselves. I know so did La Rochelle, but massive improvement. And he even said it, Munster coming next week we need to be so much better, but we will be up for this one. So it's not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. And any team in Europe, you've got to be really, really mentally prepared. And it's a Sunday game again, Sunday afternoon, which Munster have got 2 Sunday games. But can you see Munster going there and winning and getting the results and keeping their kind of up, I suppose, getting to the knockout stages dream alive? They've got to win Sunday basically and beat Northampton back to back and hope to get something in Toulouse. Last year, I think teams got out of the 2 pools on 7 and 8 points. So 2 wins possibly gets you out of the pool. I know it'll probably mean you're away in the round 16, but I think we know Munster are not going to win a European Cup unless they get who knows, God only knows in sport. But the reality is it's going to be incredibly difficult. But I think progressing in the competition is really important as well for the players' development, isn't it?
Yeah, hugely. And I based on last Sunday, what I watched against La Rochelle, Munster, 100%. They go with the same intensity, the same mindset, the same ability to get off the line than they did against Toulouse. And they've got a great chance because their ability to hold on to the ball is so much better than Northampton's. Their ability to go through the phases, their ability to be able to find those half gaps. Northampton are in a strange place of flux, obviously. I think they missed Dan Bigger hugely. He's been their kind of leading light. They're kind of, I suppose, Johnny Sexton-esque or our old Ronan O'Gara type of a figure in terms of how he leads them. And that makes a huge difference. And they seemed a little bit rudderless against La Rochelle last weekend. I'm not saying that, you can't turn that around in 7 days. We've seen Munster do it before, but I just think, if Munster come physicality, I think they'll look to start maybe. I think they will look. Maybe Jack Rowley, unless you're thinking we'll need something off the bench. If we need some energy off the bench, then you're going to have to keep Jack Rowley on it with Paddy Patterson, I'd imagine. But other than that, I'm not sure they'll make a huge amount of change.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think I think there'll be more the same team, and maybe it'll be Leinster, Ulster that there'll be some changes, but I think they've got to go strong again this week, and it's not going to be easy, because sometimes when it's you're kind of the team you're playing have a big loss, but to clarify, I think most teams going to La Rochelle the same thing could happen to them. That's how strong La Rochelle are. They're the current champions as well. So it'll be interesting. Both sides struggling in the league. Munster are in the URC. Northampton are 6th, but there's a load of teams around there who are losing lots of games. But I think they're 19 or 20 points behind Saracens, who were top of the league, won 9 from 9. It'll be an interesting one. Courtney Laws, he's back he came off the bench, and you mentioned Ludlam. I think they're two abrasive, aggressive guys that will give them a bit of grit. But it's one to look forward to. I'm sure there'll be lots of Munster people travelling over on Sunday, and hopefully they can get back on track. So that's it from us, episode 49 of the Red 78 all wrapped up. To make sure you get your podcast straight to your phone, just search for the Red 78, and you can leave a comment or an observation, send us a tweet or a message at Rugby Channel 15, or leave a comment on YouTube. And as ever, we'll see you next week, Niamh, and hopefully Munster do get back on track. But it's great to have Europe back again. There was some incredible games at the weekend, and dare we say it, Leinster were phenomenal.
Class.
Phenomenal. So
Class.
there's probably 4 or 5 teams that are kind of sticking their head above the water and look like they could be contenders. Leinster look like top of the pile there. But anyway, we can only dream at the moment, being Munster people, but who knows in the future. So thanks a million. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Quinny.
The Red 78 with Alan Quinlan and Niamh Briggs. Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
I'd like to think I know a lot.